Welcome back to Secret Weapons. My name is Mark Johnston. If this is your first time here, this is a YouTube channel where we do gear demos and reviews, as well as studio tips and tricks for leveling up your writing, your playing, and your production from the perspective of a guitar player working out of a studio. If that's the kind of thing that would appeal to you, please hit that subscribe button and stick around for future videos. Today, we're taking a look at the APFX Primo guitar plugin. I'm somebody who values workflow as much as I do final product. I think it's because, for me at least, workflow is pretty crucial to getting to a good final product. It's part of the reason that I have all of this outboard gear when plugins are so good these days. It's the reason that I use a Blackmagic camera that has an app that allows me to pull focus without having to walk around to the camera itself. Being able to kind of use tools that kind of work for the way my brain operates is pretty key and crucial to both enjoying the work and, as a result, getting a more inspired final product. And that's why when APFX reached out and asked me if I was interested in demoing Primo here on the channel, I was really intrigued in the approach they had taken in designing this plugin, because as you'll notice, this does not look like any other guitar plugin we tend to see on the market these days. Instead of an eye towards realism and recreation, APFX has clearly taken an approach more angled at optimization of the screen, of the kind of like on-screen workflow. And rather than trying to kind of trick you into thinking this is the real thing, it instead kind of seeks to do its own thing. And not only does it have sounds that are somewhat unique to it while still being intrinsically familiar as guitar sounds go, it also has a couple tricks up its sleeve that are totally novel to it and nothing else I have used. So let's get into it. At the core of the plugin is a 2-channel amplifier and an IR loader. There are a handful of built-in IRs, but you can also load in any of your own. But that amp itself is not just a capture or a snapshot of the amplifier, but instead the result of a machine learning algorithm kind of designing the amp based on the real thing. You have all the kind of necessary components for that dry section. You've got your compressor, you've got your gate, you've got your overdrive, you've got your IR loader, and your 2 channels of amplifier with independent gain, volume, and 3-band EQ controls. You also have a modulation section that gives you access to a chorus and a phaser, and both of those can be stereo post effect, mono pre-amplifier effect, or mono post amplifier effect, run separately at the same time in any position. And lastly, of course, you have a delay and a reverb. The delay is going to be either an analog delay or a digital delay that can be run as a mono or stereo ping-ponging delay. The reverb is a simple one knob, turn it up for more reverb, turn it down for less. But there's a couple interesting things at play here with this plugin as well. One of them is the inclusion of headphone correction built into the plugin, allowing you to select the brand of headphones you're using to apply a kind of in the background corrective EQ curve to get the most accurate sound out of the plugin. And secondly, there is a scenes and presets interface allowing you to use this as a live performance tool, whether that is live performing in the studio recording, or presumably even to take your laptop or your computer or even your iPad, because this is actually an iPad app as well, on the road with you to go use it in a live context, with or without a MIDI controller, because a lot of the parameters in here can be mapped to MIDI, and the ability to bank up and down between scenes and presets can be done via MIDI as well. In fact, for all of our sound samples in this video, we have my Morningstar MC6 Pro USB-C connected to my Mac Studio. I'm using this to do things like turn on and off my tuner, bank between presets, activate and deactivate my chorus pedal, all of those kind of like just little hands-free options that are nice to not have to mouse and keyboard through. But there's one final twist in this plugin that I think is really interesting and might be the thing that makes it kind of a standout plugin for some of you looking for a new option, and that is dynamic control. And what this basically is a drop-down menu in the plugin that gives you access to volume or level parameters for all of your volume / mix / gain controls throughout the plugin at a kind of bass or rhythm setting for basically low frequencies, and then treble or lead frequencies for high frequencies, where you can set kind of like a low delay mix and a high delay mix that will dynamically move between those parameters based on where you're playing on the neck, allowing you to kind of tank your delay really low for tight, focused rhythm sections, and then have it bloom up to high anytime you go up for a lead part, giving you kind of those like soaring, delay-laden lead parts. You can also do that where your gain on your amplifier increases or decreases as you go from rhythm to lead, and it can be set either direction. So it can be cleaner for rhythm and gainier for leads, or vice versa. And the plugin will let you kind of prioritize one setting over the other, where its tendency is more to favor one side of that spectrum, as well as being able to kind of customize how quickly and how smoothly that parameter modulates back and forth. It's a really interesting dynamic approach to playing that I have not seen before, and I actually do think is kind of a really interesting and inspiring little tweak and novelty in this plugin. But ultimately, I think the thing that makes Primo such an interesting option for those of you looking for a new kind of in-the-box solution is, one, that kind of dynamic control thing being an interesting novelty, but two, if you're not somebody who wants to deal with the visual language of conventional amp plugins, something like this might be the better workflow for you. And for those two reasons, I think it's worth talking about, and it also sounds good, so I think it's worth hearing. So let's go ahead and dive into the plugin and give it a listen. So let's go ahead and take a quick tour of Primo, because at first blush, I'm sure you can tell, this does not look the way that you kind of expect a guitar plugin to look. Instead of a physical kind of picture of an amp, like the physical representation of the amp, you have gain and volume with 3-band EQ for each channel, the ability to switch between them. You have your compressor and your drive and your cabinets. This can kind of be thought of as like your primary section. To the left down here, you have your tuner, which will also mute the signal unless you want to disable that ability. You've got home, you've got modulation, which is going to be chorus and phaser. You always have access to your amp up above. And then you have your time-based stuff, your delay and your reverb, your kind of wet effects, not post effects, because these are also post effects, unless you don't want them to be. We'll get to that. But that is the kind of core workflow. You have your input and your output, high and low output filters right here. This will show you your metering, and this is your noise gate that will that is adjustable along this path right here. If you need to make any changes to the configuration, up here you have your audio settings where you can set your inputs, your outputs, what kind of interfaces you're using, buffer sizes, sample rates, etc., etc. And you actually have headphone correction right here, allowing you to select headphones, and basically it will build in and bake in an EQ curve to kind of correct for any idiosyncrasies that your headphones might have, because headphones always sound very different. We're not going to be using any of this right now. One, because I'm using my in-ears, and two, because that audio will be represented in the output audio of the plugin, which means it will bake into what we are recording in our DAW. We also have MIDI set up right now, and we'll kind of walk through a little bit of that later in the video. But just know for now that I've got my MIDI controller in front of me, and we'll get into that later on. But let's start by taking a look at home bass right here. We are in the default preset right now. Let's kind of grab that so it's true default. We'll start with channel 1, the cleaner channel, and we'll give a listen to the compressor, the overdrive. We'll play with some of the built-in cabinets, but then also showcase some of the IRs that I have brought in from my personal library that I really like in this plugin. Of course, you can turn on and off anything you want. Let's get started. So from jump, clean, pretty great. You can take that gain down, push that volume up. I tend to like mid forward on most of this stuff. That compressor gets really squishy. But if you're going to make heavy use of it, it's good to kind of like play with this low pass filter over here to keep it from getting too woofy, or pull down some bass over here, or select a different IR. Something you might be noticing is down here for our input gain. It turns from blue to green to red to kind of give you visual indication of if it's looking for a healthier signal. So when you give it your loudest, you want it to be in that green. So let's bring up our preamp that we are just kind of like DIing into right now. And now that we're hitting everything a little bit harder, you can really hear that squish happening. That compressor is great. At maximum, it gets pretty insane. Let's play with the gain range on channel 1 a little bit more. And step through some of these different IRs as we go. For the built-in cabs, I tend to really like American Classic, American Modern, or that Brit for some of the kind of like higher gain stuff. But for our purposes right now, let's go to our my own hammers that I've been using whenever I have to pick my own. And let's go to, they resize in a weird way, but this plugin also kind of like is infinitely flexible. So let's bring it down small so I can see my text. even on channel 1, real good rock and roll sound right there. But obviously also still gives you let's go ahead and jump over to channel 2. And this is a point where I will point out why I have my MIDI controller in front of me. You have stage mode, which we will touch on more later. But when you go into stage mode, you can see all of your MIDI controls. And so I have things set up in here with my MIDI controller to give me access to things like a tuner without having to kind of like go down and select the tuner. And I can also channel switch. So if you're using this in a live context or in your studio but performance context, you can do things like on the fly go from and this is where that British classic IR comes back in. It's amazing what IRs will do to open things up. Yeah, I'm a big fan of channel 2. I think it's got some great hit to it. So those are the two channels. We'll keep exploring them as we go, and there's some really interesting things we can do with them later. But for now, let's go ahead, jump back over to channel 1, and let's go ahead and move over to our modulation section, where once again, because of MIDI, I can toggle my chorus on and off with my foot switch, which is quite nice. So we are now taking a look at the kind of two modulation engines here. And when I said there's a complication about the kind of status of chorus and phaser as post effects, it's because you've got your level, your rate, and your depth. But then up here you have stereo post, mono pre, so now you are in front of your amplifier. Mono post, so mono chorus. And post stereo. But what's really cool is they can both be active at the same time and they can both be in different positions. So we can have the phaser going insanely slow, really deep, at a like low mix in front of the amplifier. And the chorus can be off, giving you that mono thing. And then that chorus can give you all that width still. And once again, one of the values of being able to move those things before and after is sometimes, you know, it's common practice to want to hit an amplifier, a like dirty amp or a gain stage with phaser. It's a very different sound than running it after your amplifier or in stereo. Yeah, that flexibility is very welcomed in my opinion. And that phaser sounds cool, and I really like this chorus. I think it comes together really nicely, especially for those kind of big, lush, kind of like very 80s clean sounds. And here in that last position of our effects chain, we have our delay and our reverb. Both have access to spillover in case you want to be using them with like a foot switch or any sort of automation that turns them on and off. The delay can be stereo or mono and can be either digital or analog. So digital delay, analog delay. You have access to your subdivisions. You have access to your tempo, which can be mapped to your DAW. And then you have level and feedback. And then reverb is just going to be a mix control. Let's start by taking a listen to that delay. And it can get, of course, insanely long. And that reverb is just wide and lush. Okay, one of the great things about this plugin is, say you've got a couple different sounds that you like dialed in. We haven't saved anything yet, but you've got obviously this kind of like list right here. What you can do is go to stage mode, where you now have a series of 6 slots per scene where you can have presets saved. So you pull up slot number 1, a funky clean. Slot 2 is a dynamic overdrive. But you don't want to like hand move through these. What you can do instead is, 1, you can save them, but 2, what I have set up is you can either use your MIDI controller to pull up specific slots or scenes, as you can see here, or you can just marquee through them. So I have the ability to move up and down through my set list basically within just 2 buttons on my foot controller, just using PC messages. So I can easily go from so on and so forth. And that's all just being done with the MIDI PCC messages in here, or you can change these by hitting learn and then giving it something to listen for by sending it a message with your MIDI controller. And finally, the last thing that I really want to harp on in this video is something I have not seen in any other anything, I think. I have not seen it in another plugin, and I have not seen it in the pedal world either. And that is up here next to your settings, you have dynamic control. And what this does is listens for your rhythm or kind of like lower frequency range playing, and listens for your higher frequency lead playing, and it dynamically changes whatever effect values you want to kind of follow your playing, and you can kind of set how smooth you want that transition to be and what the balance you want to be between them is. So I think a good way of demonstrating this is going to be, let's turn on this dynamic thing with our delay level. Let's go to channel 2. Let's keep the delay off for now, but we've got let's grab one of my okay, so we've got like a rhythm tone here, like kind of a good like overdrive. And what I want here is I want my rhythm tone to stay nice and tight and chunky while I am playing. But then when I jump up to like I want delay repeats that will really kind of support and kind of sing along with what I'm doing. So what you can do here is, you see that when I hit low notes, it drops my level down. And when I hit higher stuff, it kind of goes up to follow, and it will follow back and forth. So I can go. And I can set my balance so that it's following where I want it to follow. And I can set how quickly I want that transition to be willing to happen. So it can either fade in and out, which is especially useful if you're doing things like overdrives. But And you can stack multiple things like that. So I can also say I want my gain for channel 2 when I'm playing low to be a little bit less crazy, and then I want to really like rip it when I get high. Ignore that. So now we've got so let's have it prioritize rhythm a little bit less, and let's let that transition happen more quickly. So we've got so now we can go ahead and watch our gain range and our delay level kind of follow in real time. And if you're finding that that kind of volume discrepancy isn't what you want there, go back in there and go ahead and turn on channel volume, have it go up with lower gain and drop down with higher gain. So now we have And as you can see, this is applicable to your gains, to your drive levels, to your chorus levels, reverb levels. It basically just lets you kind of play with the dynamics of everything. You can't speed up or slow down delay times based on it or change like the rate of chorus, but you can really kind of create these systems that follow your playing dynamics in ways that I have not seen implemented before, which I think is really cool.